The Supreme Court has today stated in no uncertain terms that the will of the people is indeed supreme. Outgoing Deputy President William Ruto will be the fifth occupant of the House on the Hill. His closest challenger, Azimio la Umoja's Raila Odinga, on the other hand, said that he respects the verdict but disagrees with the judge's findings. The outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta tellingly refusing to congratulate his successor during his address to the nation this evening. On the same day, he gazetted the date of new parliament sittings. The presidential contest is now settled. Could parliament be the next battlefront for this supremacy battle? Tonight, William Ruto it is.
7 and 8 of 2022 are hereby dismissed. As a consequence, we declare the election of the first respondent as President-elect to be varied under Article 143 of the Constitution.
Court upholds William Ruto's win, dismissing Raila's petition. Also tonight, Azimio's Raila Odinga says he respects the opinion of the court, although he vehemently disagrees with their decision.
This is ideological because they would have said on the evidence presented, we find there was more weight as to the evidence which was adduced by the other side. But to say that it was a hot air and it was a document coming from the Electoral Commission, I found it very, very disturbing.
Plus, no handshake with Raila, Ruto says.
As I committed to the people of Kenya, I believe in the rule of law. I do not believe in the handshake stories. I believe in an accountable government held to account by a responsible opposition.
This as he awaits the swearing in on Tuesday next week. And celebrations in different parts of the country following the Supreme Court's ruling. Catherine Simaloi is our sign language interpreter. Good evening, I'm Abubakar Abdullahi. Welcome to the broadcast. William Samoei Ruto is the fifth president of Kenya, awaiting his swearing in on Tuesday next week. This is after a Supreme Court ruling that ticked off all presidential petitions submitted by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition. Ruto will be sworn in on the 13th of September 2022. Sharon Baranga begins our broadcast tonight.
William Ruto's win was upheld by the Supreme Court on Monday. In the last 1 week, the 7-judge bench began hearing a presidential petition from the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition challenging Ruto's win after the August 9 general election. Ruto's win was a unanimous one by all the 7 judges. The judges agreed with the respondents on all the 9 key issues that were supposed to be answered during the presidential petition hearing.
This is a unanimous decision of the court, and we make the following orders. 1. The presidential election petition number E005 of 2022 as consolidated with the presidential election petition numbers E001, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 of 2022 are hereby dismissed. As a consequence, we declare the election of the first respondent as President-elect to be varied under Article 143 of the Constitution. This being a matter cutting across the public interest, we order that each party do bear their own costs.
The court found that in a presidential election petition, it can only issue orders stipulated under Article 140 of the Constitution, in that it can either, where it finds that the election of the president-elect is invalid, nullify the election and direct IEBC to hold a fresh election, or declare the election of the president-elect as valid.
The case of data-specific electoral requirements such as those specified in Article 138(4) of the Constitution, for an outright win in the presidential election, the party bearing the legal burden of proof must discharge it beyond any reasonable doubt. The question that follows was whether the petitioners challenging the attainment of 50% plus 1 constitutional threshold and the computation by the 6th petitioner in general met the standard of proof settled by this court in Raila 2013 case. The premise of the 6th petitioner's percentage computation was a press briefing made by the chairperson of IEBC on 10th August 2022, when the evidential burden shifted to IEBC and its chairperson, as it does in election cases. They produced video evidence correcting the percentage voter turnout to read 64.6 at the time of the briefing.
In the judgment that was read by the Chief Justice Martha Koome, after the judges listened to Raila, Ruto and IEBC's submissions, they did not find sufficient reasons to nullify the presidential election results. Chief Justice Martha Koome says that the court will give the full judgment after 21 days. With this, the president-elect is being prepared to be sworn in as the 5th president of Kenya alongside his deputy Rigathi Gachagua on 13th September 2022. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta has promised to ensure a smooth transition after the Supreme Court upheld William Ruto's win as the 5th president. Kenyatta says he is keeping his promise of leaving the country peaceful after serving his 10-year constitutional term.
The process of handing over is in progress through the Assumption of Office Committee, which actually has already begun its work as of August 10th, 2022. And indeed, it is my intention to oversee a smooth transition to the next administration, and all the necessary orders to facilitate this process have already been issued. And because democracy is a work in progress, I urge the country to respect the institutions that midwife our new leaders.
Now, at the center of the Raila Odinga's petition to the Supreme Court of Kenya, which on Monday upheld the election of William Ruto as Kenya's 5th president, was Wafula Chebukati, IEBC chairman. Odinga argued that the polls were unfair following the breakaway of the 4 commissioners led by Chebukati's vice chair, Juliana Cherera, splitting the commission into 2 with the judges tasked to establish whether the division affected the August polls and if they were fairly conducted. Moige William tells us more.
It was a sigh of relief to Wafula Chebukati, who doubled up as the chair to the poll body IEBC and the national returning officer mainly responsible for the presidential tallying. This is after the Supreme Court vindicated him after Raila Odinga dragged him to the center of his petition, alleging he bungled the 2022 elections, with a 7-judge bench clearing his name of the allegations leveled against him. In his argument at the Supreme Court through his lawyers, Raila Odinga told the court that the polls were unfair and the 4 IEBC commissioners who broke away from the team claiming not to be part of the results to be read by Wafula Chebukati was evidence of a broken commission. In a summarized judgment read by Chief Justice Martha Koome, the judges said the 4 disgruntled commissioners did not produce evidence to suggest that the results in their possession differed from those announced by the chairperson of IEBC, Wafula Chebukati.
Clearly, the current dysfunctionality at the Commission impugns the state of its corporate governance, but does not affect the conduct of the 2022 election.
The 4 commissioners were IEBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, Justice Nyang'aya, Irene Masit, and Francis Wanderi. The judges were put to task to establish whether the divisions among the IEBC commissioners affected the conduct of the August 9, 2022 presidential election. On this, the judges ruled that IEBC conducted the election in compliance with the Constitution.
The 4 commissioners have not placed before this court any information or documents showing that the elections were either compromised or that the result would have substantially differed from that declared by the chairperson.
The 7-judge bench also touched on the role of the chair to the IEBC Commission, stating in their judgment that the power to verify and tally results is the work of the Commission as a whole and not a preserve of the IEBC chairperson. They were also quick to note that the 4 commissioners actively participated in the verification and the tallying exercise from the beginning up to nearly the end of the result declaration.
Critically, they have not explained why they participated in a verification process when they knew that it was opaque up until the last minute. Indeed, at the Serena Hotel press briefing, the 4 commissioners acknowledged that thus far the entire election had been managed efficiently and credibly.
In the results announced by Wafula Chebukati, William Ruto of UDA was declared as winner, garnering 7.18 million votes, representing 50.49% of votes cast. Following the verdict by the 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has vindicated itself, having conducted a free, verifiable and credible election. Moige William, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, our President-elect Ruto has categorically ruled out a power-sharing agreement with his main challenger Raila Odinga. While highlighting his plan for Kenya in the next 5 years, Ruto said he was ready to work with his competitors, but not in government. Mike Agwongo tells us more.
Speaking after his election was unanimously upheld by the Supreme Court, Ruto maintained that there will be no room for a handshake, referring to the March 2018 truce between outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta and Azimio's Raila Odinga, which he repeatedly blamed Jubilee government's failure in the second term.
So, because we are a country of free choices, I want you to know that we will have an opposition in Kenya. There will be no handshake like the one we witnessed before that creates a mongrel of a government where nobody knows where the line is. That one will not happen.
He says he will work with his competitors in the role that the Constitution assigns the people in the opposition to provide oversight over his government.
I believe in an accountable government held to account by a responsible opposition. That is how Kenya is going to move forward. And so I look forward to a conversation on how they will hold us to account and make sure that we deliver on the commitments that we have made to the people of Kenya.
The outgoing deputy president, who won the tight presidential race with a 50.49% in the vote against Odinga's 48.5%, said in any democracy, a government should be kept in check by the opposition, which should play the oversight role.
When our good friend Raila Odinga retires also, we will give him the respect he deserves as a Kenyan leader.
According to Ruto, President Kenyatta's handshake with Raila Odinga left Kenyans confused for the last 4 years, claiming it was the reason why they voted for him. The president-elect further promised to serve all Kenyans regardless of their political affiliations, pointing there will be no vengeance in his government, but a united country.
We vowed to unite and strengthen Kenya, not to divide and weaken it. I therefore consider all of my competitors to be my worthy compatriots. Kenyans are united in the quest for a better society that is kinder to its children, gentler on the vulnerable, respectful of their rights, and committed to serving them.
Ruto announced that he will be making a call to his chief political rival Raila Odinga and Azimio Party, as well as his boss President Uhuru Kenyatta, to chart a working arrangement to ensure the opposition plays its rightful role.
But shortly I will be putting a call to him so that we can have a conversation on the process of transition.
The Supreme Court upheld Ruto's victory in the August 9th presidential election Monday, ending weeks of political uncertainty and delivering a blow to his closest political rival Raila Odinga, who had alleged fraud in the poll. Now, 13th September 2022 marks the D-Day when President-elect William Samoei Arap Ruto will be sworn in to take over the mantle from his former boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta, devoid of what he terms as intimidations during his campaigns. Mike, GOtv 47 at Karen in Nairobi County.
Well, tonight, Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua have lost a petition challenging President-elect William Ruto's victory. The country's apex court, in a scathing ruling, accused the two main petitioners and 6 others of falsifying evidence, presenting forged documents, and sensationalizing information. Our senior political affairs reporter Apollo Kamau now reports on why the petition was lost.
In what was a final blow to Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga's attempt to become the country's 5th president, the country's apex court handed him blow after blow on the 8 key issues framed by the court on the basis of what Chief Justice Martha Koome termed as hot air, false evidence, and sensational information in court, while launching a scathing attack on Odinga's lawyer Julie Soweto, who alleged Venezuelan Jose Camargo manipulated IEBC forms to make William Ruto president-elect.
We turn to Form 34A for Gacharaigo Primary School, which was sensationally presented by Madam Julie Soweto, advocate, to show that one Jose Camargo accessed the RTS and interfered with the result contained therein. This also turned out to be no more than hot air, and we were taken on a wild goose chase that yielded nothing of probative value.
Koome further lashed out at former anti-corruption czar John Githongo for presenting falsehoods in court through his affidavit claiming there was a control center in Karen manipulating the election results.
John Mark Githongo, which may contain forgeries, are also dismissed for not meeting the evidential threshold. Those averments contain no more than incredible and hearsay evidence.
While dismissing the 8 election petitions, the court ruled that Ruto attained the 50+1 threshold of the total votes cast, disputing the petitioners' computations. Odinga, who was also hoping to use the fallout among IEBC commissioners to bolster his case, so the judges dismissed the petition, saying IEBC boardroom antics cannot disqualify the vote.
To do this would be tantamount to subjecting the sovereign will of the Kenyan people to the quorum antics of IEBC.
Dismissed too was a claim of a middleman who interfered with the system and whether IEBC conducted a verifiable and credible election. Also central to Azimio's petition was whether there was a difference between the election forms at the polling station, national tallying center, and party agents. The Apex Court dismissed claims that IEBC's decision to postpone Kakamega, Mombasa, and other elections suppressed Odinga's vote. Azimio's petition on the differences regarding votes cast for the presidency and other elective seats fell flat on its face, marking the end of Odinga's bid to become the 5th. Not a single piece of evidence in the Azimio petition stood the test in court, as they lost on all the key 8 grounds framed by the court, much to the disappointment of their supporters and the legal team as well. Apollo Kamau, TV47 at the Milimani Law Courts.
Now, Raila Odinga has expressed his dissatisfaction with the Supreme Court's decision which upheld William Ruto's win. Raila says though he respects the court's ruling, he vehemently opposes its decision. Flora Limuki with the details.
The presidential election petition number E005 of 2022 as consolidated with the presidential election petition numbers E001, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 of 2022 are hereby dismissed.
Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga says he has accepted the Supreme Court verdict upholding the election of William Ruto as the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya, while vying to continue to fight for accountability. In a statement after the verdict that dismissed his petition to overturn Ruto's election, Raila stated that he and his Azimio brigade respect the court's opinion, although disagreeing with their decision. Raila, who was trying his luck at the presidency for the 5th time, expressed his disagreement with the fact that the judges did not find any fault in the 9 issues raised by the petitioners. Odinga mentioned that the move by the Supreme Court to draw out his petition and substantially upholding the victory of President-elect William Ruto is not the end of the movement by the Azimio allies. The former Prime Minister has also vowed to continue the struggle for transparency, accountability and democracy.
Now, IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati has welcomed the move by the Supreme Court, which vindicated him following claims by Azimio la Umoja team. And as Josh Onsare now reports, Chebukati addressed the media in the absence of the 4 commissioners who disowned the results he announced.
Hours after the Supreme Court upheld Ruto's win that was contested by Azimio led by Raila Odinga, the electoral body chair Wafula Chebukati now says the verdict on the presidential petition has vindicated him and the commission.
Election is a process and not an event. This process started immediately after 2017 general election, and the commission tested its systems and processes in over the 40 by-elections in the last 5 years. Therefore, the Supreme Court judgment today is a testimony that the Commission conducted a free, fair, transparent and credible general election that met the democratic aspirations of the people of Kenya. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is finally vindicated.
Wafula Chebukati addressed the media in the absence of the 4 dissenting commissioners led by the Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, called on the 4 to follow the law if they feel aggrieved on the commission leadership. The 4 Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera and Commissioners Irene Masit, Francis Wanderi and Justus Nyang'aya disowned the results announced by Chebukati.
As a commission, we follow the law, and it's up to them and their conscience what they want to do going forward. But as a commission, we follow the law, and we have not chased away anyone.
Chebukati said, despite intimidation and assault of the commission staff, the court's decision has proven that they conducted the August 9th general election in accordance to the law. The IEBC chair further condemned leaders who caused chaos at the National Tallying Center at Bomas during the tallying exercise, saying profiling of commissioners must stop going forward.
Ethnic profiling, targeting and cyberbullying of members of the commission and its staff. To date, no one has been arrested for these crimes committed against members of the commission and its staff. As it stands, no human rights or civil society organization have condemned these heinous acts meted on the commission and its staff. Working for IEBC should not be a death sentence.
Even as the commission concludes its 2022 election task, Chebukati has affirmed the commission's commitment in preparation for the next election cycle.
Asante.
Josh Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
Now, advocates of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance presidential candidate Raila Odinga earlier today stated that they respect the verdict declared by the 7-judge Supreme Court panel regarding the presidential petition, but refused to accept the judgment which upheld President-elect William Ruto's election victory. The advocates expressed their displeasure by the Supreme Court's verdict, while insisting that there will be further communication from the team which will be presented to the public in the coming days. Dennis Otieno has the details.
After the Chief Justice Martha Koome, who led the 7-judge Supreme Court panel hearing the 2022 presidential petition, upheld the victory of President-elect William Samoei Ruto, advocates of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance expressed their displeasure with the verdict.
I have a message for you.
Speaking after the verdict at the Milimani Law Courts, which was acting as the temporary Supreme Court, Azimio's legal team, led by Siaya County Governor James Orengo, stated that they respect the law and do not refute the verdict, but faulted the judges for not being thorough enough in considering most of the evidence they presented in court over alleged election malpractice.
In 50% plus one, I think they were ideological. We are using the baseline of total registered voters in the land as against those who turned out to vote. If you read any legal material on what should be a turnout, including the Black's Law Dictionary, turnout is normally based on the registered members in a country as against those who turn out to vote. So there are so many other examples we can take up.
Orengo stated that the team was much more prepared for the 2022 presidential petition than when they filed for petition in the 2017 presidential election, a case in which they won after the election was nullified by the courts.
Very well prepared. I think compared to 2017, we're a lot more well prepared.
The lawyers pointed a blaming finger to the 7 Supreme Court judges, accusing the judges of ignoring the most substantial evidence without explanation. Murgor alleging that Venezuelan internationals were involved in rigging the Kenyan general election.
I find it incredible that that could be the holding of the court. In more than several of those cases, we had overwhelming evidence. As my senior counsel, Mr. Orengo says, the servers were not opened. The involvement of the Venezuelans for a full month before, half a month before the elections and up to the 16th of August was not explained. No, it wasn't even offered.
Meanwhile, the Kenya Kwanza legal team, led by advocate Fred Ngatia, celebrated their victory while lauding the decision made by the Supreme Court. According to Ngatia, the verdict made on the 2022 presidential petition was the best ever compared to the verdicts made during the 2013 and 2017 presidential petitions. UDA Secretary General Veronica Maina lauded the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission for conducting a free, fair and credible election.
The time for court cases has ended. The time to assemble a new team has now started. We now move forward as one country and as one people. Asanteni sana.
Through an official statement, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance presidential candidate Raila Odinga stated that he had accepted the verdict made by the 7 Supreme Court judges, however faulted their decision to dismiss their issues, as he said he is yet to communicate further on their next course of action. Dennis Otieno, TV47, Nairobi.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Hey! Kaluma King Herbal Lozenges zinazo nguvu maradufu kutuliza kikohozi, vidonda vya koo na mafua. Kaluma King ni shwari.
Tika mama huyo muharifu kaiba kuku zangu, vifaranga wangu na mayai zote pia kabeba. Haya, tika mama huyo.
Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
At Streisand School of Medical Health Science and Technology, we prepare the change makers of tomorrow by training them in theater technology, medical engineering, science laboratory and health records, applied biology, environmental health science, nutrition and dietetics, ICT, counseling psychology, and many more. Enroll with us today and take a certificate or diploma course. Visit our campuses in Juja, Nairobi West, Kisumu, and Homa Bay and get your career going.
Je, maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini. Kaluma Strong ina aspirin kama kiungo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
Do you aspire to acquire knowledge and skills relevant to the job market and entrepreneurship? Join us at KIPS Technical College, one of the largest NEC examination centers in Kenya and the premier tertiary institution established and mandated to operate by TVET Authority. We lead when it comes to offering high-quality technical and professional training and bringing out the best in our students. Our ultra-modern learning facilities, highly qualified and experienced lecturers, attachment liaison office, counseling office make us the preferred choice. Limited HELB loans are available to students. Our intake is ongoing for full-time, evening and online classes. Join us today and experience the KIPS difference. KIPS Technical College, your sure path to success.
Watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with Kenya's fastest growing television. Let's get to more news now. And President-elect William Ruto will be sworn in as the 5th president of Kenya alongside his deputy Rigathi Gachagua on the 13th of September 2022. Ruto will be taking over the leadership of the country from his predecessor, President Uhuru Kenyatta, after the Supreme Court upheld his win. Sharon Baranga takes a look at what is ahead of the son of Sugoi.
Many of them that we may never know, oh God. We thank you for the prayer warriors and the Church of Jesus.
A new chapter is set to begin in the country's leadership.
Season, oh God, even to this.
With the Supreme Court upholding the win for William Ruto, the ball has now been tossed over to the Transition Committee that will oversee the handover of power. The committee, which includes Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, Karanja Kibicho, Hilary Mutiambai, and the Registrar of the Judiciary, Anne Amadi, National Intelligence Service, among others, halted the process of working on the transition owing to the presidential petition. Others are the Head of Public Service, Joseph Kenywa, Military Boss General Robert Kibochi, National Intelligence Service Director Philip Kameru, State House Comptroller Kinuthia Mbogwa, AG Kihara Karaoke, PS Jerome Ochieng, PS Julius Moya, PS Macharia Kamau, PS Julius Korir, PS Joe Okudo, and Solicitor General Ken Ogeto. The President-elect William Ruto had also submitted a 3-member list of representatives to the transition. The 3 are National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi, Uasin Gishu Woman Representative Gladys Boss, and United Democratic Alliance Party Secretary General Veronica Maina. The assumption of the office of the President Committee is tasked to facilitate the handing over process, organize for the security of the President-elect, and organize for the necessary facilities and personnel for the President-elect. The committee also coordinate the briefings of the President-elect by relevant public officers, facilitate communication between the outgoing President and the President-elect, and prepare the program and organize for the swearing-in ceremony. Already Ruto has an idea of who will constitute his cabinet, but some of the big names in the Uhuru government face an uncertain future.
It is now time for us to prepare for the day when we wake up to the momentous duty to serve Kenyans. Let us all reflect on our contribution and look forward to build this country and nation together to achieve the glory of Kenya, express its heritage and splendor, and fill every Kenyan heart with thanksgiving.
Ruto has promised to immediately get the ball rolling when it comes to delivery of his manifesto to Kenyans. Also, he welcomes members of the opposition to work hand in hand with his government. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Well, he is the first Kenyan to have won the presidency at the first stab. William Samoei Ruto, a political student of the late President Daniel Moi, has also made history as the first deputy or vice president to have won in the first stab. Flora Limuki has the details.
30 years after entering the political arena, William Ruto's election as the 5th president of Kenya is a historic one. He becomes the first deputy or vice president to have clinched the seat at the first attempt. His win being attributed to his political savviness over time. Ruto won on a thin margin of 233,211 votes against Azimio One Kenya candidate Raila Odinga. The Supreme Court has upheld Ruto's win, which was challenged by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga.
The presidential election petition number E005 of 2022 as consolidated with the presidential election petition numbers E001, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 of 2022 are hereby dismissed.
Previously, several deputy presidents or vice presidents, as earlier referred, have vied for the presidential seat, but none of them have made it to be the head of state at the first try. They include Moi Kibaki, who lost the 1992 and 1997 before winning the 2002 election, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, who finished third in 2007, Musalia Mudavadi, and in an exceptional case, Daniel Arap Moi became the second president of Kenya, with no contest after the passing away of Jomo Kenyatta.
Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, he was vice president, and then he was booted out of the office through KANU, being booted out of KANU. And decades later, he vied for office and lost.
Ruto's victory comes amid the messy fallout between him and outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta, who supported his political nemesis Raila Odinga, despite the promise made in 2013 that Uhuru would lead for 10 years and support Ruto for the next 10 years after the end of his 2 terms.
Hata ile rais alisema ya kwamba atapata nafasi yake ya miaka 10 na nafasi ya miaka 10 ya William Ruto. Hiyo ni maneno sikumuuliza rais.
His campaign over the years as it targets jobless youth characterized with generous donations, appearing to replace strategies of the Youth for KANU YK92 used to promote the ruling party in 1992. The president-elect has made history for being the first presidential candidate in Kenya's history to win on the first try, with Odinga having made 5 unsuccessful attempts.
For him to clinch it the first time, he was the first to do it, and to do it despite the odds.
William Ruto's victory has proven his critics wrong that, even with the state's backing, early and effective grassroots mobilization is key to victory in any elective seat. The president-elect is set to be sworn in on 13th of September. Flora Limuki, TV 47.
Now, despite coming from a rich political background, the presidential crown has seemingly eluded Raila Odinga for 5 times now. His presidential petitions have been thrown out of the apex court twice, first in 2013 by the then Chief Justice Willy Mutunga, and today by Chief Justice Martha Koome. Stanley Nyaringita takes us through Baba's 5th miss and what his future might look like.
The presidential election petition number E005 of 2022 as consolidated with the presidential election petition numbers E001, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 of 2022 are hereby dismissed.
The ruling by the Chief Justice Martha Koome that President-elect Dr. William Samoei Ruto was validly elected has consequently confirmed the second presidential candidate and Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga's failure to clinch the top seat. A week after the announcement of the presidential results by IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati at the Bomas of Kenya, Raila, together with his presidential running mate Martha Karua, sought over 20 reliefs to the Supreme Court. The 77-year-old told the court, among others, that the Electoral Commission didn't tally and verify the count before announcing the presidential result. Raila also poked holes on the transparency and accountability of the results. He also denied that the president-elect did not achieve the 50% plus one constitutional threshold. Raila Odinga, who was born in 1945, has for 5 times chased the presidential crown, and each time it has eluded him. The passion to lead the country propelled the son of former Vice President, the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, to seek for the presidential seat in December 1997 under the National Development Party (NDP). The late Daniel Arap Moi, who was seeking his 5th 5-year term, emerged the winner with 2,445,801 votes, while the late Emilio Mwai Kibaki garnered 1,895,527 votes. Raila, who was the leader of NDP, got 665,725 votes, which was 10.92% of the votes, a result he was contended with. Losing in the 1997 election, Raila and his NDP troop joined the KANU party under the Daniel Torotich Arap Moi in 2001. However, a fallout within the party forced him to decamp to the opposition party in the year 2002. He later endorsed Mwai Kibaki to be the president of Kenya under the NARC coalition, which was successful during the 2002 election. Raila tried his second stab at the top seat in 2007 under the Orange Democratic Party after fallout with Kibaki's NARC Kenya. His bid, however, failed after the Electoral Commission of Kenya declared Kibaki the winner on 30th December 2007 with an advantage of 232,000 votes. Refuting the results, Odinga called for mass action, which led to violence breaking out in the country as it simmered down after 2 months. Odinga, a dyed-in-the-wool opposition leader, tried his luck at the presidency during the 2013 March poll that put him against Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. Odinga lost once again to his opponents by a difference of 832,887 votes as he challenged the outcome of the election at the Supreme Court. He cited electoral irregularities and also queried on rejected voters. However, the former Chief Justice William Ruto upheld the election. In 2017, the mass mobilizer challenged the re-election of the Jubilee's Uhuru Kenyatta in the Supreme Court. Raila accused the Electoral Commission of tampering with the Commission server to alter the results to the favor of his competitor. The landmark ruling by the former Chief Justice David Maraga found that the elections were tainted with irregularities. A re-election was held, but Raila boycotted it, and subsequently, on 30th January 2018, Odinga staged a swearing-in ceremony where he named himself the People's President. With Raila having termed 2022's candidacy as his last bullet, political analyst Macharia Munene says that the country may just see more of him in the coming general elections.
Well, Raila is a politician. It is in his blood. It is in his veins. He'll complain, grumble for some time, and then he'll be a candidate in 2027.
In Ruto's acceptance speech today at his current residence, he said that Raila will be treated well upon his retirement.
Viongozi wanaostaafu kama rais watapata heshima na watapata haki yao katika mahali pa heshima katika taifa letu la Kenya.
Stanley Nyarungita, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, after William Ruto's victory was upheld by the Supreme Court, residents of Sugoi, where President-elect William Ruto comes from, entered into a celebration mood immediately after the ruling. Chichi Josephine visited Sugoi village and has filed the following report.
It is an unpopular village where President-elect William Ruto was brought up. His village, despite its unpopularity, Sugoi's reputation has now spread throughout the country as the home of the 5th President of Kenya. We embarked on a journey to Sugoi, a distance of about 16 kilometers from Eldoret town. Here we find residents who had a lot to talk about President-elect William Ruto.
Nilikuwa natembea tu na mkuu. Nini na mkuu kwenda kusoma shule.
Ruto amepata shida mingi na Ruto sahi amekaa kwa kiketi. Hata sijui yako na furaha kweli mali yako.
Hako naye.
Mimi nataka nifike nyumbani nione television Ruto akicheka tu.
Those who knew him growing up recount his childhood life, where they described him as a hardworking and a loving child who worked hard for everything he got.
Yeye alilelewa kimaisha ya kinyumbani, hata kwao nyumbani twajua kabisa ni nyumbani ile ya chini kabisa, bukara kabisa. Hata ukienda kuangalia nasari wake aliyoanzisha, aliyosomea, utashangaa kwa sababu ni ile tu Mungu alimuinua.
Yeye alianza kuonyesha uongozi tangu utotoni, tangu kumaliza shule. Akaanza kuwa kiongozi na alianzia kuuza kuku na tukaona alianza kuchienua.
We arrived at this area located along the Eldoret-Bungoma Road, where Ruto started his business of selling chicken.
Ruto alikuwa anauza kuku hapa. Unaona hii kuku? Ruto alikuwa anauza hii kuku hapa. Unaona hii? Alikuwa anauza hapa Saturday na Sunday. Saturday na Friday. Jumatatu anaenda shule. Ruto alikuwa analima na ng'ombe na baba yake hapo ng'ambo. Ruto aliendelea pole. Mali Ruto alitoa hiyo maendeleo yake jamani ni mbali. Ruto alitoka mbali. Ruto ni mtoto maskini.
Alikuwa anauza kuku hapa. Sisi tulikuwa wadogo. Tulikuja tukashikia alikuwa anauza kuku. Tukaifurahia hiyo. Sisi tukashika hiyo biashara. Sasa kuanzia leo nafikiri sasa tutashukuru Mungu sana.
Sisi tungetaka tujenge at least atunulie shamba yetu. Mali tukiwa na occasion ya watu wakuja kununua kuku, at least hata kama mvua itanyesha tuko na mali tunawezeka store ya kuku.
Ruto anakuwa na mtu roho mzuri, anakuwa na watu wote, watu wake ni wote. Iko heshima kubwa.
Reporting for TV 47 from Sugoi village in Uasin Gishu County, my name is Chichi Josephine.
Well, it was not just Sugoi that was celebrating. It was celebrations in different parts of the country after the ruling of the Supreme Court. Many now calling on the next government to make life better for them. This story was produced by Andrew Juma.
Tears of joy, happiness and celebrations were the order of the day in parts of the country. Immediately, the Apex Court pronounced Ruto's win as free and fair. In Bungoma County, residents thanked the court for what they termed as answering their prayers to see Ruto's win upheld.
Hili wa Ruto imetufurahisha sana na ambapo sisi tuko na imani moyoni. Bungoma hapa tulipigia Ruto na tunaambia wale wenye wajaridhika wakubali matokeo ya koti na tumekubali kabisa na tunaimba tunasema.
In Githurai 45 Kiambu County, Ruto's supporters were all over singing, dancing and glorifying for the news. In Baringo, Bomet counties and Kapsabet, which are Ruto's backyard, celebrations filled the streets. Those in the mountain, including Laikipia, Kiambu, Kirinyaga and Nyeri counties, could not hide their joy as they drummed up their support for the president-elect.
Tumefurahia sana sisi tukiwa wa Kenya. Tulikuwa tunangojea leo matokeo na tulikuwa tunangojea matokeo ya Daktari Samuel Ruto.
Tukae na amani, mimi nimeenda nyumbani mpaka Bondo.
Na uamuzi wa koti William Samuel Ruto uhuru ya Kenya. Kwa hivyo tuweza kuendelesha taifa hili na tumefurahishwa vikamilifu ya kwamba shurutishwa na mtu ya uamuzi ambao uko haji wa limuru. Tumefurahi sisi wetu tuhakikishe watu wote.
Residents of Mwingi town in Kitui asked the president-elect to remember them in his leadership, even though they voted for Odinga.
Yangu ni furaha sana kwa wakati kama huu. Nishangu na vingelegele kwa kupata rais wetu tulikuwa tunatarajia kwa hamu na gamu.
Residents of Mombasa, however, declined to agree with the court's decision, but promised to work with Ruto, asking him to serve the country as one.
Tungependa sana Bwana Ruto atukumbuke kama jinsi walivyosema ataturudishia kazi zetu hapa port.
Na bila shaka ushindi wake tunajua ni ushindi wa mama mboga, tunajua ni ushindi wa mwenye bodaboda, tunajua ni ushindi wa mwenye kinyozi, tunajua ni ushindi wa kila ambaye kwamba ako katika maisha ya chini, asonacho naye siku moja awe nacho. Na bila shaka ndio lugha aliyokuwa akitumia bottom up.
Na hadi alituambia kama ataregesha poti, tuomba Mheshimiwa Ruto turegeshee poti, uhakikisha vijana wetu wamepata ajira.
Teaching of 7 judges, which according to Article 163 of the Constitution has exclusive jurisdiction to hear and determine disputes relating to the election of the office of the president, gave its verdict upholding William Ruto's win. But what do we know about the 7-judge bench in red and black, at least for this time? Andrin Kilemi takes a look at the profiles of the lords and the ladyships sitting at Kenya's apex court.
I will be addressing the first, second.
After compelling arguments and counter-arguments, the 3 women and 4 men that make up the Supreme Court finally gave their verdict on the 2022 presidential petition in what was termed as an unanimous declaration. Chief Justice Martha Koome, who also serves as the president of the Supreme Court, led the court in the 14 days spotlight, going through tens of thousands of submissions from lawyers in both factions.
But we do need you to clarify again.
Martha Karambu Koome holds a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Nairobi, a postgraduate diploma in law from the Kenya School of Law, and a master's degree in law from the University of London. She was a council member of the Law Society of Kenya between 1994 and 1996. Koome was admitted to the role of advocates in 1987 and appointed Chief Justice on May 19, 2022. This was the very first time that Koome was sitting on a bench that would determine the country's next move. She will go in the books of history as the first woman to ever occupy the highest seat in the apex court.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Sitting on the same bench was Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, with over 37 years' experience in the legal profession. Mwilu was appointed Deputy Chief Justice in the year 2016 and elected by her colleague judges of the Supreme Court as a commissioner at JSC in May 2017. She holds a Bachelor and Master of Law degree from the University of Nairobi. This was Mwilu's second hearing of a presidential election petition, having sat in the 2017 bench that annulled President Kenyatta's win.
If you felt...
Completing the list of ladyships within the Judicial Service Commission is Justice Njoki Ndong'o, who holds a master's degree in law in human rights and civil liberties and a diploma in women's rights. Njoki worked as program officer at the Institute for Education in Democracy and national protection officer at United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees.
In both instances.
Also sitting at a presidential election petition for the first time is Koome's former boss at the Court of Appeal, Justice William Ruto, who has been at the judicial service since 1987. Ruto has more than 33 years of experience in the legal profession. He holds a Master of Arts degree in Criminology, a Bachelor of Law degree from the University of Nairobi, and a Diploma in Legal Practice from the Kenya School of Law. Justice Isaac Lenaola is the youngest member of the bench and was hearing the presidential election petition for the second time after 2017. Lenaola was appointed judge of the Supreme Court in 2016 and served as presiding judge of the Constitutional and Human Rights Division at the High Court in Milimani. He is an alumni of the University of Nairobi and the Kenya School of Law. He has served in the judicial service for 19 years since 2003. Justice Smoky Wanjala, who too was among the four that threw away President Kenyatta's win in 2017, was once again in the spotlight with his witty remarks that cracked laughter at the presidential petition. Wanjala was appointed judge of the Supreme Court in 2011. Justice Mohamed Ibrahim studied law at the University of Nairobi and was appointed as judge of the Supreme Court of Kenya in 2011. He was admitted to the role of advocate in 1983, was elected to LSK Council in 1994, and served as the chairperson of the Judiciary Committee on Elections in 2021. Andrine Akilemi, TV 47.
Away from presidential matters, and the Senate will have its first sitting of the 13th Parliament on the 8th of September, with its first business being the election of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of the Senate. The Clerk of the Senate has called on qualified applicants for the two positions to pick and later drop their nomination papers to the office of the Clerk before the 7th of September. Senators-elect have also been invited to attend a pre-swearing-in session to be conducted on the 7th of September.
The first sitting of the Senate of the 13th Parliament shall be held on Thursday, 8th September 2022 at 9 a.m. in the Senate chamber in the main Parliament buildings in Nairobi. The business to be transacted at this sitting shall be the swearing-in of the senators and the election of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of the Senate in accordance with Article 106 of the Constitution and pursuant to the standing orders of the Senate. In preparation for the swearing-in of the senators, we will be having pre-swearing-in sessions, which we will hold within the precincts of Parliament, within the main Parliament buildings in Nairobi, on Wednesday, the 7th of September, starting from 9 o'clock and running throughout the day. In relation to the Gazette notice appointing the first sitting and pursuant to Article 106 of the Constitution and the standing orders, any person who is eligible for election as Speaker or as Deputy Speaker of the Senate in terms of Article 106(1) of the Constitution, and who is interested in contesting for these positions is advised to collect nomination papers from the office of the Clerk of the Senate.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent. I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians.
If I default paying on 15th of every month, I should pay with a top up of about 10 or 20% on top.
In my opinion, that is, I can just equate it to obtaining. It's an illegality. You are not a bank.
Yes.
You have no business of charging interest.
Hey! Kaluma King Herbal Lozenges zinazo nguvu maradufu kutuliza kikohozi, vidonda vya koo na mafua. Kaluma King ni shwari. Tika mama huyo muharifu kaiba kuku zangu, vifaranga wangu na mayai zote pia kabeba. Haya, tika mama huyo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari. Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Want to know the meaning of a soft life? It's living with ease and accessing quality lifestyle while taking a swim. It's taking care of your body in a 5-star gym while you achieve your fitness goals. It's living in a serene and quiet neighborhood. It's about staying in a place with spacious driveways and ample parking. It's about living in a safe and secure environment. It's about convenient shopping. Soft life is living comfortable in affordable and yet an elegant space. It's everything stylish. Here's to introducing Great Rift Apartments, located at the heart of Nakuru City in Kisulisuli Estate, just a few minutes from the Central Business District. Great Rift Apartments, the hub of soft living.
Authentic, natural, planned. Transforming. Endless benefits. Slaty, purely Kenyan. Buy now on Jumia or Amazon.
Disability is not only limited to physical disorder, but also mental issue. From depression.
I was under depression for like 2 years.
Bipolar.
Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder.
And even suicidal thoughts.
When I was just about to hang myself, a certain voice just talked to me, and I believe that was God. I tried suicide more than 6 times.
Beyond the Limit has gone beyond its limit to find answers so as to help everyone go through life with ease. Join Mudhoni Maina every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back. Now, the Supreme Court has today stated in no uncertain terms that the will of the people is indeed supreme. The outgoing Deputy President William Ruto will be the 5th occupant of the House on the Hill. His closest challenger, Azimio la Umoja's Raila Odinga, has, on the other hand, said that he respects the verdict but disagrees with the judges and their findings. The outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta tellingly refusing to congratulate his successor during his address to the nation this evening. On the same day, he gazetted the date of the new parliament sittings. The presidential contest is now settled, or is it? Welcome to this edition of Pandits Night. Just a reminder of who our guests are. Suba Churchill is the co-convener. Kura yangu sauti yangu. Wanjiku Muhia is the member of parliament-elect Kipipiri. Thank you for your time tonight. Churchill, let me start with you. You are from Kura yangu sauti yangu. Did our votes as casted on the 9th of August count?
Yes, they did, and that's why we have come to this point in time when the results were announced by the IBC chairperson on the 15th at the Bomas of Kenya. That is the same basis on which those who felt that they were aggrieved by the announcement by the IBC approached the Supreme Court as required under the Constitution, and that is the basis on which the Supreme Court, led by the Chief Justice Martha Koome, made their pronouncement today, confirming that indeed, based on the law and the Constitution, that His Excellency William Samoei Ruto was duly elected in accordance with the law as established.
Churchill, you say the votes counted as per the cast on the 9th of August. There are some claims of a Venezuelan by the name Jose Hormago who was in the system. You don't buy that, do you?
It's really not a matter of buying. Of course, Kamago and the two colleagues have been in our public discourse for some time. We know for a fact that indeed there are people who exist, and that one of them, in fact Kamago to be specific, is among those who were apprehended at the airport on the July 21st at Jomo Kenyatta, trying to reach out to his colleagues who were putting up somewhere on Riverside Drive. So this is something that is in the public domain. We know they had an incident with the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. We hope that in the fullness of time, when we get the full judgment by the Supreme Court, that we'll find the incident also featuring, because it occupied quite a bit of time in the Supreme Court. And part of the reason why I think that those in Azimio have faulted the judgment even as they accepted it, is because they did not see here that mentioned in the abridged version of the full judgment that is here to be delivered on the 21st.
Mheshimiwa Wanjiku, congratulations upon your election as the Kipipiri Member of Parliament-elect, awaiting the swearing in. Perhaps the same question, did it matter for the 49.9% who voted for Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate? Did it matter to them that they cast their ballot, or was the system, as they claim, interfered with?
Thank you very much, and first allow me to say hi to Kipipirians, the great people of Kipipiri who saw it fit to count their votes. So I answer in my greetings to people of Kipipiri that yes, the votes matter and the votes count, and they voted me in as a member of parliament and perhaps the first woman member of parliament for Kipipiri, and also to say hi to all Kenyans who have been celebrating today, confirming, reaffirming that yes, their votes matter. And today it has been well notified to all Kenyans that their votes matter, no matter what politics, tricks that can surround any eventuality. At the fullness of time, the vote from Wanjiku matter, and these votes were taken by surprise to those who are expecting it. They didn't matter, but I think by now they could only be saying in fullness of time they will know something more. I believe there isn't anything they're expecting. I'll just say hot air.
And Mheshimiwa, when you say these votes matter, if you look at the numbers, at what expense? At an expense of a deeply divided country right in the middle, isn't it? A near 50%.
I think
so that's the beauty of democracy.
That's the beauty of democracy. But by the way, when you go for election, at whatever level, from MCA to the president, there will always be number one. We say in politics, in election, there is no number two. So even if you win with one vote, like Honorable Jane Kehara did during the nomination, there you are. We say the majority have their way, the minority have their say. So even if the country was almost 50-50, but there is one side which we say in Kiswahili, ilifikisha kilo.
And that kilo constitutionally is the 50% plus one vote. Of course, the Supreme Court in its ruling today said that the President-elect William Ruto did meet that. Churchill, let me ask you, the first star for President-elect William Ruto, against all odds, a man who fashioned his politics as a hustler, who claims to have been selling chicken in his early days, who went to school without shoes, is tonight a President-elect. What is that indicative of, Churchill?
Of course, I would first of all, let me clarify that in this program I've come as, of course, I'm a co-convener of Kura Yangu, Maisha Yangu. Yes. But I've also come in as a representative of Kenya Daima that has been campaigning for, peaceful elections and transition. And we are glad as Kenya Daima that so far, we have not seen any significant incidents that has disrupted the peace that we need, and which has made it possible for the justice process that we have seen in the courts. We have appreciated the fact that even as people in Azimio said they disputed the results and rejected it, they decided to go and make their claims in court, and that for Kenya Daima is very, very significant, because anything that disrupts the peace, that leads to loss of life and limb, is unwarranted, is unnecessary, and a demonstration of the faith that as Kenya Daima we continue to place in the institutions that we have established under the Constitution. Nascent as they are, we all have a responsibility to make sure that those institutions grow. And that is why as Kenya Daima we have been saying, ni wajibu wangu, sio tu to vote, but also to ensure that we kagua bila kuchagua. And one of the messaging that we were putting across ahead of the elections was to encourage Kenyans to elect, but do it with a sense of responsibility, knowing that they're the same ones that have been complaining about corruption, about bad leadership, about poor service delivery, and therefore even as they vote, they must know at the back of their minds that they will have to bear with the choices that they make. Secondly is to point out, and going back to the vote that you talked about, His Excellency President-elect, he's still President-elect until he takes the oath on the 13th, has been elected by 32% of the total 22 million that registered as voters. The immediate runner-up, though of course in elections there is no runner-up, but runner-up means the one who comes second. Absolutely. Has attained 31% of the 22 million registered voters.
Painting a picture of a hotly contested
election. And that for us is significant as Kenya Daima, because we believe that, competitive as they were, and for the first time we saw campaigns and politics that was largely based on issues, be they economical, be they social, and of course political, being a political process. That for us is very significant, and therefore, yes, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto is going to be the 5th president, but as it always happens in all elections, you saw even in the United States of America, the Al Gore versus Bush, where at some point it was not clear who had won and they had to go to the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Now, at times elections go to the wire like they did here, and that is why the framers of the Constitution thought it wise that for one to be declared president, over and above the 50% plus one, there is of course the other requirement of securing at least 25% in not less than 24 counties, which of course serious presidential candidates always meet. And that is where now Ruto kind of reached the finish line slightly ahead of his main competitor, Raila Odinga. So
and
we are glad.
You are right, Churchill, to say slightly.
Yes.
Because the numbers, as we say, are very stubborn, and they show that. let me ask Mheshimiwa Wanjiku that question, perhaps. A chicken seller,
and I
boy from Sugoi,
yes,
who equally was a student of Moi,
yes,
part of the notorious 1992 Youth for KANU, is now a president-elect.
Thank you, and I'm surprised he hasn't been able to answer a very simple question of a chicken seller is now a president. Of course, what that means in simple terms is that this has encouraged every child in Kenya, and it means that every child now can dare to dream, to be anything that you dream of. And it is similarly to myself in Kipipiri. My win and my victory shows women in Kenya that it doesn't matter how mighty, how many billions, the class, the level of your competitor, you can dare to dream and you can have the seat. So that question in simple terms, every child is inspired tonight. Every child in Kenya can go to school without shoes and can be our president or whatever they want. We cannot really argue that Honorable President Ruto, the 5th, has won slightly, because as I have just said, in election, even if you win with one vote, you are the winner. And in election, there is no number 2. We always have number 1.
Mheshimiwa, you say every child in Kenya tonight can dream of becoming a president.
Yes.
Of course, the history of the president-elect is rightfully indicative of that. But it's not every child in Kenya who had an access to a sitting president, one of the longest serving presidents, and be part of his political mechanism at a very young age, isn't it?
Not necessarily that all children become president. Some can dream to be pilots, some can dream to be principals, some can dream to be serious businessmen and women like in this country, and they may not be privileged to have encountered or interacted with the businessmen and women. What I mean is that there is inspiration, because regardless of Honorable Ruto having interacted with the President Moi, we have seen the roadblocks that have blocked his way until this very day, because ideally the court case that was in Supreme Court today was just a roadblock. Everyone who is not even a lawyer, including my own old mother, who is not literate, she could already listen in Kikuyu what were the matters in the court, and she already had a judgment. She knew this case was going nowhere.
When you say roadblocks
of deep state, roadblocks of DCI, roadblock. You can see even the president today is not bold enough, like me and you, to say, congratulations, my brother. We expected that, but instead he wholesomely or in a wholesale said congratulations, or he thanked everyone. So these are the kind of roadblocks that we have seen in this journey, and many of us who are in politics, even those who are outside the country, like myself and members from Iyala, they paid dearly. Every member has a story to tell, not necessarily in cameras or today, but every member has seen this roadblock in extension of friendship with the deputy president.
You see, Mheshimiwa has created the impression that I cannot answer a simple question of people, selling chicken and stuff and walking barefoot. The question is, who did not? At the time His Excellency Samoei Ruto grew up, who had the benefit to have a pair of shoes in the rural Kenya? Everybody went barefoot. Everybody sold some merchandise. People carried stuff on their head to support their mothers on their way to the markets. What today for me is significant is what you have actually pointed out, that a lot has happened between when the younger William Samoei Ruto sold chicken and now. You know, the exposure to power.
It's growth.
The exposure to power, which at that time was not based on any qualifications. It was based on loyalty to the powers that were during the Nyayo days. The exposure to resources. You all remember the Youth for Kanu 92? We had money the first time in my life. At some point, the largest currency was 200 shillings note. It was the first time in 92 that we had 500 shillings note. You know, today, younger generation like the ones that are seated here think that 1,000 shillings has been there ever since. That's not the case. 500 shillings was introduced in 92, and His Excellency, the President-elect, was the treasurer. We cannot ignore those facts. All right, and go back to when His Excellency was selling chicken and eggs and whatever. We cannot overlook the fact that he handled a lot of Jirongo currency that came in 1992. Those are facts that will be documented in the books of history.
And Churchill, you ask a very important question.
Yes.
You ask who
did not walk barefoot.
There are many.
His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka has told us in this country that when he was asked to go with a pair of shoes, he stuffed the shoes in his box.
All right.
And arrived at school barefoot, and then the school asked him, "We told you." I say, "They are in my box." Say, "Where?"
All right.
So that
you
tells
ask who did not.
Yes.
Which is a good question.
Yes.
His closest challenger in this race is a man who had his father as a vice president.
Exactly.
The outgoing president had his father as a president. Surely when he paints himself as though he's a hustler who went to school without shoes, you will understand why some would buy that idea. Be it at face value or ideology.
The Honorable Raila Odinga was not born when his father was vice president.
Raila
Odinga was born much earlier. His father became vice president upon attainment of independence. In which year was Raila born?
But honestly,
was his father vice president?
Absolutely.
So Raila also, just like William Samoei Ruto, got exposed at some point in his life. Of course, when the father became vice president, his lifestyle changed. And so on and so forth. Just like when His Excellency William Samoei Ruto at some point left selling chicken and came to the university, became a member of the university choir, had access to the university. The two have gone through almost similar circumstances. And so my point is...
Unfortunately, Churchill, it's fair to share time and also not to look like you're from that other side. Let's convene fairly. But when we say that Mheshimiwa Ruto, even if he went barefooted and he sold the chicken, he also had money, Kano 92. I think those are stories. The facts are disturbing. And the facts are, for him even to have found himself at that Kano 92. It's just like me, I was Mama Boga in Isili. But the fact that I found myself as Mama County in Nyandarua, the first one, is also a struggle. Even that struggle of finding yourself to where you are today, from where you have come, without exposure, without anyone holding your hand, I think those are marks that we cannot ignore to award him.
All right, Churchill, earlier on you talked of institutions and Kenya believing in its institutions.
Yes.
The president in a televised speech earlier on said, and I quote, "We must ask ourselves, is it about the numbers or process? Can our institutions rule one way in one election and another way in another election without scrutiny?" Of course, he was raising concern in relation to the 2017 judgment, which based its argument on election being a process, famously by the then Chief Justice David Maraga. The president is tonight questioning why the change.
Yes. Yes, I think, of course, the president the outgoing president is a human being like any other. He has his own feelings and perceptions. he went through the nullification in 2017.
Absolutely.
And we who were there at the time and conscious of the political processes know how both of them, including the president-elect, the kind of, a bit of hard feelings they both had. It is on record, the statements that both of them made about the judiciary. And so the president was also indirectly disagreeing with the judgment, but also robustly said they will follow the rule of law. I think that was in his statement. And so he was kind of encouraging Kenyans to also hold institutions, including the judiciary, to account just like they do for the executive and other arms of government. And so that is what I got from the gist I got from the president's statement, is that he could not quite understand, or by the time he spoke, he's yet to process how in 2017 the emphasis which saw their election nullified seem not to have been, on the process. That was on the process and was not on the numbers. And I think even the judges at that time said as much. This time around, there was really, the Supreme Court went at length and brought in the formula, in trying to dismiss the Senator Okiya Omtata's petition, and really went into details. And that kind of created the impression that, this time around it was about numbers. Of course, it was about numbers partly because there was a particular petition that specifically focused and raised doubt as to whether the president-elect had attained the magical 50% plus one, and that, of course, is why. Yeah, that's why. But more importantly, and now speaking, from Kenya Daima that I've come here to represent, which is a multi-stakeholder, a platform that brings together the private sector, civil society, religious groups, and the media, is that the Supreme Court decision today is a further demonstration of how institutions that we have established under the Constitution, and I'm proud to be associated because I was a delegate at the BOMA's Constitutional Conference that established, some of these institutions alongside a number of people who are now in government, either county or national. And so for us as Mkenya Daima, we are saying the delivery of what in my view is justice by the Supreme Court, different from what we saw in 2013. We have been seeing incremental growth, even in the growth of the judiciary. You remember when the Supreme Court came on the stage to pronounce itself on the presidential petition in 2013, it took about 2 minutes. In law, they say justice must not only be done, but be seen to have been done. And for me, therefore, the decision by the Justice Maranga's Supreme Court and this one that was delivered today is a demonstration that even if certain actors may not agree with the judgment, justice was not only delivered, but was seen to have been delivered.
Mheshimiwa, tonight the president is questioning the initial judgment was based on the process. This judgment is based on numbers.
Okay, I keep on correcting him to take shorter time because now you have to repeat the question for me because it's taking forever. No worry. Now, I think for the president to bring that comparison, comparatively, I think we cannot compare the two. And for every Kenyans to have expected that since that other election was nullified, this also ought to have been nullified is not proper and it is not correct scenario. For reasons that was based on process, technicality, and all those other factors that Maraga raised. But if you could listen carefully to Judge Koome, of course there was we could see even from the materials that she was reading, there is a lot of improvement. There is a lot of improvement from both sides, that is the IBC, the process itself, and so we cannot compare the two scenarios. Reason, even the petitioners had very wild issues that they raised, the Kamango story, the ping pong, they really had quite wild issues that they brought, and none that was tangible. You know, in the court of law, and this is logic, you must bring tangible evidence. So there wasn't any petitioner out of 9 who petitioned against our president who brought one single Form 34A and claimed that this Form 34A in Mara Primary School in Meharati had 300 votes, but on arrival at Bomas, it was demonstrated to have had 500 votes. So for judges, really, it was difficult to even attempt to think otherwise. So we cannot compare the case. We cannot say this was like this, or this ought to have been like this. In my view, I feel the judges did their best, and I'm very proud as a woman to have seen this bench had women, the judge president, the deputy judge president, Joe Kidungu. And I'm also very proud of the men on board, the 7 bench, because all of them couldn't have been insane to think the same without a single dissent. So I'm proud particularly how the judge
Churchill, I'll come to you, but Mheshimiwa, let me ask you this. In his speech, the president did not congratulate the president-elect, William Ruto, and this is in reference to the outgoing president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Is that indicative of the bad blood between the two? We were talking of earlier spats between the two politically. Of course, the president had endorsed Azimio's Raila Odinga previously.
I think that was his choice of candidate. It didn't materialize. And as a human being, maybe he felt shame. He felt uncomfortable to congratulate a candidate who he fought so hard, because ideally the system belonged to the president.
You say as a human being, but as a president who has served for 10 years, should he have congratulated?
He should have. He should have. And I'm very proud of my president, because by the end of his speech, he said he will reach out to Honorable Uhuru, he will reach out to Honorable Raila, and he will call him. And that shows that Kenya has come of age. When we fight on political arena, whoever takes the day, you move on and you congratulate the other and you build the nation.
Chachi?
Yes, one of the things that I wanted to say in partial response to Mheshimiwa's comments is that, one, you know, to nullify presidential election requires a certain threshold. It is not that, you know, there was no evidence or what Mheshimiwa described as tangible evidence. There is a certain threshold. When I listened to the lady Chief Justice, I got the impression that it did not attain that threshold as to warrant the whole country going back to a fresh election. And that for me was the gist of it all. And I think there was a bit of equity, which as Mkenya Daima we have been emphasizing, so that as Kenyans we continue to have faith in the institutions, including the judiciary, which, as I've demonstrated, has grown tremendously. This is no longer the courts where years gone by, Mheshimiwa would perhaps, you know, have an issue as a politician. Maybe she thinks she has been rigged out. And then her case is determined in the year another election is due. That is no longer the case. That is part of the growth that we have had in the judicial system. Today, you don't need to serve somebody personally, because what people would do, like Mheshimiwa, His Excellency, President-elect, or no, of course, is somebody who is protected. So you just instruct your security, make sure nobody is around me, and you get away with, you know, election petitions. That is no longer the case. Lastly, and in response to your last question, I think that as a country, we have made tremendous progress. I was happy to see, you know, the President-elect, His Excellency William Ruto, saying he will reach out to the president, of course, in jest, of course, saying that, you know, they have not talked in a while, and which is in public domain. We know that they are not the best of friends, and that is how politics changes. You know, I was telling somebody before we came in here that, you know, when we get invited to weddings, there's so much happiness, there's so much dancing, so much rejoicing, so much eating and drinking. But when people decide to divorce, they don't go back to the church, they go and divorce in court. So we have two gentlemen who came together in 2013 and are leaving office as not the best of friends. These things happen. And so even today, the excitement we see today, you know, might fizzle in the shortest time possible. We saw it in 2002.
Churchill, as an exiting president,
yes,
would he have congratulated him? Tonight people are talking of arguments of Trump and Obama.
Yes.
Trump questioned whether Obama was born in America.
Yes.
There was a nasty exchange between the two.
Yes.
But Obama congratulated him.
Yes.
Should President Uhuru Kenyatta have congratulated the president-elect?
I leave it to the president, the outgoing president himself. You cannot really demand to be congratulated.
But we are here,
but of course, it's a matter of courtesy and saying, and you know, at some point, these two gentlemen, outgoing and incoming, will be sharing a podium. And that, for me, is the best time to say, congratulations before handing over the sword.
I really want to make correction. I really want to make correction on that.
You will. There is no constitutional requirement of a president to congratulate another.
Yes.
If he fails, the president at least tonight has assured Kenyans that he will hand over power peacefully as part of his commitment 10 years ago. Surely if he does not congratulate, is there really a problem?
It is, and there is. But it is not a problem that can deny us to continue. But what I want to correct, when we come here on such a show, on a national TV, as leaders, we must really speak of things that even our children can learn that they're the right thing to do. As a president, for me, he ought to have congratulated his brother, even if it is his brother in quote, the incoming president, because that has no harm in him. We can't say that we leave it upon him. Because when we say that we leave it upon him, is like we don't know if he could have done it. If we know the right thing, we should say he didn't, but he should have done it. The right thing, he should have said, congratulations, Honorable Ruto, and it would not have done any harm. There is no constitutional requirement.
The president said there is a committee in position to deal with the transition.
Yes.
He assured Kenyans he will hand over power. Surely, if he congratulates or otherwise,
what I got the president
I
saying,
don't think you really need to labor on this. In simple terms, he could have done it. That's what I want to tell Kenyans, that he could have done it. It was the right thing. He didn't do as upon him. But for me as a leader, I cannot tell Kenyans that I leave it upon him. He could have done it. Even when I won my seat in Kipipiri, Honorable Kemunya called me after 2-3 days and he said, congratulations. That was the right thing to do. It's always good to do the right thing. It is not a constitutional requirement. We don't live on strict constitution, on strict Bible teaching, but we teach ourselves the right things to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it's a matter of courtesy, but you cannot really extract. You know, it's like extracting a tooth. You cannot force. What I'm admitting at my level, being a very small person, is that I have no capacity to force the outgoing president to congratulate the incoming president. And
Churchill, in your small capacity, would you expect an outgoing president to congratulate an incoming president? In your small capacity. In
the growth of our political culture, it will come to a point. You know, Mheshimiwa here has mentioned about the U.S. The U.S. has come a long way, you know, over 100 years. Remember, they fought their, liberation war in 17-something.
Absolutely.
When you go to Washington and see very beautiful buildings, and you see the year in which they were built, 18-something, they are still as good as new. That is how far they have come. The same to their political culture. But you also saw lapses worse than what we have experienced here in the world's supposedly greatest democracy. So these things will always happen. We have recently seen, during the swearing in of a number of governors, there are certain instances when the outgoing governor did not show up. We saw that. And exactly. So in the same vein, let's not, have a prescription for some of these things. In the fullness of time, maybe we'll attain that level where people will naturally feel duty-bound. In fact, it's normally a call. It's actually not the incoming president to initiate, as he was trying to suggest. Let the outgoing president feel the urge to initiate the call. And that is how it happens. But that normally happens when you are competing with somebody. It is indeed the Honorable Raila Odinga that we should have been asking whether he has called. But if he does not feel again, as I've said, these are matters of courtesy, and if people have said they disagree with the court, you can understand why they are a bit reluctant to congratulate, because that looks like an endorsement, yet they have certain issues that they have disagreed on in the judgment.
Mheshimiwa, let's talk of Raila. He made the 5th stab to be the 5th president. It wasn't successful. What next politically for Raila Odinga, in your view?
At least that is a question that I can answer. It is upon him, because there comes no courtesy. It's political. But in my view, as a leader, I would think him being 77 years, in 5 years' time, he'll be 83. I think he should just retire. And since we have left politics, now we are at work. During politics, we are saying we shall put him in a wheelbarrow and take to Bodo. For this session and for purpose of going forward, I would say that he respectively retire, he get his package, and he hand over the baton to any other person from his community, from his region, from his party, who can competitively deal with the current politics. Because everyone have seen that Kenya has come of age. You must do your politics very smartly. You must convince Kenyans in a way that Kenyans will have to buy your agenda. Kenyans have come of age where they will not go by threats, that system. What Ruto was experiencing, I was experiencing in Kipipiri every day. The DCC and the commissioners could call the Nyumba Kumi people and say, Jubilee has to deliver this majority leader seat. Equally, the system and the people, some people believed that the system has to deliver this presidency. So we have come of age, we are out of that avenue now, we have crossed the border, the political arena now will be like marathon going forward. And so for an 83-year-old man, respectively, I think he should just bless another person with a baton of his political career. He should leave it at that.
Mheshimiwa Wanjiku, why perhaps retire? There are aging presidents, some in power. One we had, for instance, in 2002, Mwai Kibaki. Joe Biden is equally an aging president. What of those who say give it one more shot last time?
I am just looking at the current scenario. How many times have he tried? This will be the 6th one if he dare try. And at the 6th time, he will be 83 years. Looking at the current situation, particularly in Kenya, we cannot even compare the politics of Mwai Kibaki and today, because this is the time we were removing Moi. So the whole country was somehow a small percentage of Moi and a huge population against Moi. So there was that lack of the wave of where the Kenyan people wanted to go. If you look at Joe Biden, the system of America, he has just said, is 100, 200 years ahead. Even the way they campaign at his age is also not comparable to Kenyan system. You know how Honorable Ruto used to wake up very early in the morning. You want to tell me an 83-year-old man will wake up at 5 a.m. to start having meetings, organizing people, arranging people? This is just not going to be possible. So instead of making the old man struggle, and he may struggle and get very frustrated, for me he should retire politically, continue giving his wisdom, his experience to the nation, and hand over the baton to another person who we can master the size and fight, so that we also feel we have fought a better war. Because this one without a deep state, really, without deep state, that slight margin that you are saying, if deep state wasn't there with Raila, there was going to be a huge margin.
Churchill, the president-elect today, talked about handshake. He was very categorical, insisting that there will be no handshake, that he will engage his former competitors, the other presidential candidates, as opposition leaders. The 5th time Raila has lost this seat. What next for Odinga, in your view?
I'm not a believer in ageism. The fact that Mheshimiwa here, and of course even the president-elect, His Excellency William Ruto, alluded to, bestowing Raila the respect he deserves when he retires. The fact that they are looking forward to his retirement means that he is such a potent force that he is their waking nightmare. as a civil society actor.
A force that had deep state and
no. I mean, this small margin of 200,000 is
with
nothing.
Deep state.
No. Forget about deep state. His Excellency William Samoei, the president-elect, is the deputy president to date. So talk of deep state, he's part and parcel of that.
Okay.
So these are things we can tell, people in the rural areas who do not understand. But in my point is
that one in parliament it can't go and challenge. When you say people in rural areas cannot understand.
I'm just saying
that people in my rural area understand very well.
We did not get the standing orders. We were never told the standing orders of this debate.
But people
so
in
let
the
me
rural
proceed.
areas
Let me proceed,
understand.
and I hope you'll compensate me for the lost time.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say here is that and I started by saying this, that the Honorable Raila Odinga got 31% of the 22 million voters that registered.
Mm-hmm.
His Excellency William Samoei Ruto got 32%, a difference of 1%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that, irrespective of the age difference between the two, if you asked me between the two, who is an asset in terms of advancement of a democratization process, I'll choose Raila first. We still need the Honorable Raila Odinga in this country to help us advance and deepen our democratic process. And as Mkenya Daima, we believe in strengthening our institutions that are still nascent, that require a lot of deepening and reforming. We have seen the challenges, despite being given a generally green light by the Supreme Court. The challenges at IBC, leadership challenges in independent institutions and commissions. Even though they were not, they did not get the reproach that they deserved. It played out, and that is very awkward. We need to strengthen those institutions. Office of the Registrar of Political Parties has lately been doing a commendable job. Recently launched, a manual for civic education. We need Raila, even if for the 5 years he would have ruled, if he won, we need those efforts, those ideas. The Raila I saw campaigning at no point, never failed to attend his scheduled rallies because of his age. When I listen to him speak, I never see memory lapses. He can remember what happened in the 60s much better than those that we may think are younger. And so what we need is clarity of thought, ideas for the future, and not somebody's age, because age at times is just a number. And sometimes older people have more progressive ideas than people who posture as young, but have some of the most retrogressive and backward ideas in this country.
Churchill, because of the interest of time, let me question that line of thought. And often we hear the argument that Raila has fought for the reforms of this country. He has fought for the democratization space in this country.
Yes.
History serves that as right.
Yes.
It's quite, I think, we can debate about it.
Yes.
But why not, and why have Kenyans for 5 times not given him the mantle to a man many would believe has fought for their very own democracy?
It's our political culture. Kenyans are known not to elect some of their best. It is about those who package themselves and who hate history. We had it during the campaigns because they have no track record.
All right.
People with no history will always hate history. But people with a track record in reforms will always be victim, because majority of the voters may not have experienced the 24 years that we were under, for example, the Nyayo regime. If you went to South Africa today and ask the younger generation that never experienced apartheid, they'll not tell you how, how sweet winning an equitable society is. I once observed elections for the AU in South Africa, and after getting into the polling room, asked some young boys who were playing in a school field, if you are old enough to vote today, which party would you vote for? To your surprise and to our surprise, they went for a party whose name sounded sexy. There was a party called Keep It Short and Simple. In brief, KISS. So they started giggling, and then they say, then one of them who was courageous, they say KISS. So you get the gist that people who never experience
generational disconnect. That's what
generational disconnect.
Okay.
And that is why the lack of civic education, which as Mkenya Daima we emphasize, because a lot of young people, first of all, never registered as voters, and even among those that registered, never turned out to vote. Part of that is because of the gap in civic education. If we had proper civic education, such gaps would be filled and Kenyans would make the right choice.
As you react to what Churchill has said, because of the interest of time, answer this question. You have a president-elect who will be sworn on Tuesday as the 5th president, William Ruto. What should Kenyans expect from him? I suppose to the balkanization of people whom we talk to and refer to as hustlers, they must have expectations.
A lot of expectations, but first allow me not to let his line of thoughts go unchallenged, because claiming that what we are discussing here, people in the rural area cannot understand. I come from a rural constituency. People understand politics perfectly well, and that's why they had to do away with a majority leader who has been a minister 2-3 times and replaced with a simple girl like Wanjiko Mohia. So people in rural area understand. His line of thoughts is really beating itself, because he's speaking of generation disconnect. And when I speak of a person who be 83 years, he will definitely have so much disconnect with the generation. What do we do with this generation? That is the generation which will be in place. That generation will not accept to vote for Guka or great Guka while there is an uncle. And he say if he's given Raila, he will still pick Raila. When I'm given Ruto, I'll still pick Ruto. And I'll pick him because of even now connecting to your question of what the hustlers, like myself and many others, expect. First, we expect that he will fulfill his agenda. And if you cared to look at several members who are seeking for elective seats from governors to MCAs, the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza mirrored what most of us also spoke of to our electorate. First, we spoke of agriculture, noting that agriculture is the backbone of this nation. I have been in Yala for the last 4.5 years. Every day I drive to Arusha, I get very worried. I at times make fun in my car and say I may close my eyes. Why? We have been experiencing one-way trade. You find a line of more than 5 kilometers of trucks coming from Tanzania to Kenya. What are they importing? We are importing onions, carrots, food stuff that we grow in Nyandarua. Why? The cost of production of agriculture has escalated to unreasonable levels. At that time, we had farmers and businessmen crying that we import eggs from Uganda. Why? To produce an egg in Uganda is much cheaper than in Kenya. So when Kenya Kwanza speak of agriculture holistically, that is one economic value that will change this country. Look of things like water. People think that only northeastern part of Kenya lack water. You'll be surprised that in Nyandarua, we supply water from Aberdare here in Nairobi, but part of my county and constituency, we are starving from clean drinking water. That is a manifesto that we expect Kenya Kwanza to fulfill with the help of us elected members. Unemployment. We have spoken of unemployment in large, just like the Americans and any other countries speak of it. To create employment, we have spoken of Hustlers Fund, which will be created and be introduced to young men and women, the mama bogas, to introduce their business to reasonable size of capital so that they can get self-employed, because we cannot all fit in the office. In terms of education, our universities have collapsed. Yesterday, if you watched in Joro, one member was claiming, and we all know that Egerton University was the best of the best back in 90s, even as late as 10 years back. Our universities have collapsed. Why? simply because even the vice chancellors who have been sent to man our universities are a result of handshake. And when he speak of how you organize your campaign, and when he speak of the process at IBC, the IBC commissioners have really no problem. It's the system in Kenya, because when you are bringing commissioners, you bring the uncle of Kanini Kega, you bring the girlfriend of Joho, you bring another relative of another person. You are really not serious. So the system is not serious. Kenya Kwanza is about to make the system very serious.
Let me put this as a disclaimer that we cannot independently verify who is whose girlfriend.
But we know.
And I'll allow you to take it back because of time. Chachi, let me ask you this. The president-elect now, I almost refer to him as deputy president, though he still is. The president
substantively, yes.
In his campaign talked about hustlers, a government of Mama Mboga. He promised a hustler fund. He promised a government that will be the face of hustlers. More than the sloganeering, the Herculean task starts on Tuesday, isn't it, once he's sworn in?
Exactly. You know, yes, I'm happy that, you know, even before he's sworn in, that His Excellency talked about the Hustler Fund. I'm sure it will be established. I was happy to see in Nakuru, for example, Her Excellency Governor Susan Kihika also promising to establish, you know, a 1 billion fund for cooperatives. Those are very good ideas. It's not that such funds have never been established. We have had youth enterprise funds. We have had, you know, women enterprise fund. The problem with these funds is the corruption that sets in. And I was happy to see, for example, during, you know, His Excellency William Ruto's, you know, speech after the Supreme Court ruling, you know, being asked, how do you intend to tackle graft? Because that is the elephant in the room, or the room in the elephant for that matter. It is not about whether those funds will be established, but whether those funds will be managed in a manner that serves the purpose. I will not be surprised, because when Kenya Kwanza went on a campaign, for the first time we saw a political formation boldly accepting that perhaps we should accept corruption as a way of life. And that is why, as Mkenya Daime, we are saying, we were not just encouraging people kukagua kabla ya kuchagua, but we are also promising to work with institutions that ensure that corruption is fought to the bare minimum, including EACC, but more importantly, to work with those institutions to build the capacity of Kenyans to hold the leaderships to account. We cautioned Kenyans, kagua bila kuchagua, but even after the elections, we do not want to behave like our young people say, we will not vote because the leaders have not done anything for us. Leaders, including Mheshimiwa here, as soon as they get comfortable in the office, forget all these promises. She's able to remember it because she has just been elected.
Before I give the clock,
I saw for a fact the woman representative for Nakuru County, the woman representative elect, suggesting that Honorable Tabitha Karanja, senator, saying that, you know, a fund should be established for senators to be able to oversight. Now, hustlers don't get allowances. Hustlers are about the day-to-day lives. And so we want to make sure that those who made promises to hustlers really come up with policies that are hustler-friendly, that are hustler-based, so that they don't start thinking about allowances they want to be given to facilitate. They are going back to the counties to hold the governors to account.
Before I give Mheshimiwa the last comment to make, will it be fair to say that based on your response, Mkenya Daima, or you individually were in favor of Raila Odinga presidency?
Not really.
Not from your response tonight?
Not really. You know, when I came, my preparation was about what we are about. I didn't know that it was going to be political. I'm not in the habit of asking who is coming. But we as private actors, you know, I've told you Mkenya Daima is about private sector, it's about civil society, it's about the media, it's about religious groups. Those groups are in the private sector. As Mkenya Daima, we have taken the position that we will not stop at the elections or swearing in of elected leaders, but we'll go further to hold those leaderships to account. I'm just setting the tone of what we plan to do.
Mheshimiwa, let me give you a closing remarks as you respond.
Thank you. I also wish to respond to him that Mkenya Daima, I hope also he represent me, because he speak of religious groups and I may be part of those religious groups. But either way, as a member of Kenya Kwanza, in particular UDA, I have never heard anywhere in any campaign, unless I was campaigning from the skies, that we say that we allow corruption. With all fairness, even you as a media personality, I'm sure you have not heard that. So if he had standing order, we could tell him to withdraw and apologize. But on his behalf, let me apologize that he has said that in Kenya Kwanza. The president, in waiting to be sworn in, spoke categorically that he knows the elephant in the room and he will be giving a substantive statement about that. In my closing remarks, I want to say today is a great day where God has manifested himself, that it doesn't matter how many roadblocks the system, the deep state, the threats can put in front of your campaign. If God have purpose and chosen you, like David, like many other examples in the Bible, you will have the day. I want to encourage Kenyans to continue believing in Kenya Kwanza manifesto, which is real, is a time of wait and see. I do not believe that our president, in waiting to be sworn in, and even ourselves, can really take the mic and continue cheating our Kenyans every day in our campaign trail, because we live in the same community. These are our brothers, these are our sisters. They don't have water, they need water. So it's a time of, it's a matter of wait and see. We are going to implement and we are going to work very hard to support him. And Kenya Kwanza government is really for hustler and hustler for this Kenya Kwanza. And we even invited all those, even the competitors, to come and join hands and we build one country so that we have one peaceful country. In Raila's case, I still insist, let him give us his wisdom from a periphery, but not as a main player, because as things are now, the way campaigns will be organized, he has just given an example of a sweet word. I doubt even at 83 years, he will be able to form a sweet word to the current generation. So let's believe in Kenya Kwanza. We wait upon the Lord to take care of the rest of the journey. This is the journey of implementation. We are ready to work very hard, and we are ready even to pray for President Uhuru to soften his heart with congratulation or without congratulation. Matokeo ndio hayo, na that is what God purposed.
All right, you're watching TV 47.
If you allow us, we may not mind to have a one stanza song just to thank God, even if we may sing it in a language that Churchill may not understand.
That would be taking it a bit too far.
Thank God.
I think the campaigns ended. I think the campaigns have ended.
But we continue thanking our
the
God
campaigns have ended.
time.
Fair enough.
As Kenya Daima, we believe Kenya is bigger than Azimio, Kenya is bigger than Kenya Kwanza, and so let's look at the bigger picture and see how now we grow the economy, how we ensure that there's sustainable peace, and how we ensure that we support institutions that help us to grow our democracy to prosper.
Suba Churchill is the co-convener Kura Yangu and is a member of the Mkenya Daima. Wanjiku Muhia is a member of parliament elect Kipipiri and will be a member of parliament upon swearing in. Of course, you flawed Kimunya, a big political name in Kenya's
which again is inspirational to Kenyan people, that they should not fear big names, they should not fear deep state.
Mheshimiwa, you are not that small. You are a member of Yala.
But I have moved my way.
I was not majority. Thanks for watching. I'm Abubakar Abdullahi on behalf of the entire team that made this production possible. Bye for now. Enjoy the rest of our programs. Just a reminder that the man who you see his picture behind me on this screen is the president-elect. Upon swearing in on Tuesday next week, he will be Kenya's 5th president. This, of course, following Kenya's Supreme Court ruling today, which upheld his win, nullifying petitions that were challenging. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Enjoy the rest of our programs tonight of all nights. Good night. And above all, God bless.
We value your feedback. If you would like to send questions, comments, or suggestions for your favorite TV47 shows, call us on telephone number